This is one of my favorite childhood visual encyclopedias of dinosaurs and other extinct animals, so for this episode of Dinovember, I'm just going to flip through this randomly and stick my finger down somewhere, and whatever I land on, I will have to research and then talk to you about. But first, this episode is brought to you by my sleepy dog, who will be joining us for at least some of this episode. Okay, here we go. Flipping randomly. This is Pentaceratops. Perfect, I don't think I've done that one before. Pentaceratops means five-horned face as opposed to the more famous Triceratops for three-horned face because, as the book explained, when Pentaceratops was discovered, the scientists reckoned they had found an unusual dinosaur with five horns on its face. Hence the name. In fact, Pentaceratops had the usual three-horned face. The two remaining horns were merely outgrowths of the cheekbones, which were not unusual features among the long-frilled ceratopids. Although, if you count all of these that ran along its frill, then it had a lot more than five. Math. By the way, Wikipedia calls those hornlets, which is so cute for no reason. Pentaceratops grew 18 to 20 feet long. However, one specimen currently holds the record for the single largest skull of any land animal that we know of. The part of that skull that we have preserved was 1.2 meters long, which reconstructed to its full length would have been in life 2.65 meters. That's 8 feet, 8 inches long. A skull. Let that sink in for a minute. Interestingly, it has been suggested that that specimen of Pentaceratops is different enough to be its own thing, called Titanoceratops. But the most recent study that I found in that debate concluded that it is just a really big, old Pentaceratops. Now, you might look at that skull and think it's just totally inconceivable that they could have held that whole thing up, but it had two big old holes called parietal fenestrae. Fenestra is just a fancy word for hole, which obviously would have been covered in skin in real life, so it would have been just one solid surface, but it makes it a lot lighter, and therefore it could get a lot bigger. Okay, just one more really cool and interesting and weird thing. In 2014, a scientist described some new fossils that had enough overall similarity to Pentaceratops to be a new species of Pentaceratops, but it still meant that the type species of Pentaceratops, Sternbergii, was actually closer related to Utaceratops than to this other specimen, which makes Pentaceratops paraphyletic. In other words, this species of Pentaceratops is more closely related to Utaceratops than it is to a different species of Pentaceratops, which is so weird. And he does point out that there is not, in fact, any requirement that genera must be monophyletic, and this move, making Pentaceratops the two species farther related than you would expect, seems preferable to synonymizing Utaceratops and Pentaceratops. And when I first read this, my original thought was like, well, then maybe we should make it a requirement that genera be monophyletic, because this is kind of disgusting. But maybe this is just a more useful solution than lumping all of Pentaceratops and Utaceratops together into one genus. Plus, I realized that actually our definition of a genus needs to allow for this, because obviously in the rare case that we come up against something like this, it's going to seem really strange, but when any population undergoes enough change, evolves for long enough, there has to be a point at which the members of the population as it stands now constitute something different enough as to be classified in a different genus compared to the members of the far earlier population, iteration of that population, probably millions of years ago. But perhaps it doesn't matter in this particular case anyway, because other studies have found that we just don't have enough data to diagnose a new species of Pentaceratops anyway, so who knows. Also, this article uses the word Bespeaks. I mean, come on. Listen, I'm all about a little bit of fun, flowery language, for sure, but with already the amount of ultra-specific jargon that has become inherent to every field of science today, how can the public ever hope to understand what scientists are actually doing, as I believe they have a right to, when most scientists seem incapable of writing in anything close to, like, everyday language? Anyway, just a little pet peeve of mine. I hope that the work that I do helps bridge that gap at least a little bit. Anyway, we've got only about 10 days left of Dinovember, so I've still got a bunch more of your awesome suggestions to get to, but keep letting me know what dinosaurs you want me to talk about in future episodes.